Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and we always talk, or at least we admonish people in the gaming community, people in the collecting community, and even people who are looking to be a part of these communities. We're often admonishing them or telling them not to buy into the hype, not to buy into FOMO, buy the things that you like. And it almost feels like no matter how much you advise people to do that, to a certain degree, some people are just always going to be into the hype. And what's making me realize this is the PSP. I've been playing the PSP for a couple days now, and I actually posted to my community when I was playing Metal Gear Solid Portable. I was playing that the other day. And every time I turn this thing on, I'm always just reminded how ahead of its time it was graphically, sound wise, the features on this device. Um, and obviously, this isn't as nearly as technologically advanced as the PS Vita. The Vita obviously takes it to a whole new level. But for the time in which this came out, this device was on a whole other level, and the games for this device were on a whole other level. And just to add, which I know a lot of gamers may not care about this, but the fact that you could watch movies on this bad boy, the whole UMD or UMV, I'm sorry, I know I'm probably butchering that, but you had I think it's UMD. You had UMDs that you could play movies on this thing. And for some reason in the retro space, when it comes to handhelds, the PSP is just, I feel like it's just super overlooked. We always want to hear about the Game Boy Advance. We're constantly looking for the Game Boy Advance SPs. We're looking for the AGS 101s. We're looking for the AGS 001s. We're looking for the 3DSs and the DS Lites and things like that. But I see the PSP get slept on so much, and there's just so much goodness in this handheld that is, it's just remarkable. And, one of the things that I definitely see happening with this device, and it always happens, something is going to happen, right? There's going to be some announcement, there's going to be something that reminds people of this device. And for like 3 months in a year, at some point in the future, the PSP is all of a sudden going to be the hot item. It's going to be the item that everybody wants, and then for some reason, everyone's going to be running to try and pick up a PSP. Now, I don't think the PSP is as cheap as it was a couple years ago, and I do think that more and more people are starting to catch on slowly, little by little. But I do remember, like, a couple years ago, PSPs, you could pick up a PSP for like 25 bucks, 30 bucks, really cheap. And mind you, this is post lockdown. This is post 2020. This is like during the peak, during the height of it all. PSPs were not ridiculously expensive. And I remember there was a point where I was constantly like, I would go to the thrift store and see 2 to 3 PSPs every time. There was a point where I had every model. I had the 1000, the 2000, the 3000 model. I mean, I had them all. And eventually I wound up selling a few of them, and I wound up only keeping this one. This is the only one that I have left. But I remembered, like, these just being kind of like the forsaken handheld. Even the PSP Go, the PSP Go, I don't see those as much, to be quite honest with you. But this device in particular, I don't see a lot of people jumping on this while it's affordable, while it's available to you. And like I said, something's going to happen, and eventually everyone's going to be on top of this again, and everyone's going to be trying to buy up the games and stuff like that. And I'll be the first to tell you that there has been a massive dip in PSP values, the value of the games, the value of the handhelds themselves. And if you're looking to get into retro video game collecting, you want to build a collection, you want to have, you want to start somewhere, the PSP is a great place to start. No one's really looking for these games right now. No one's really trying to build a PSP collection right now. You probably can build a solid library of games, even just going to a mom and pop shop. Most mom and pop video game stores that I go to, they don't have their PSP games priced ridiculous. You can, if you're looking for games that are like $30 and under, you can definitely stack your bookcase with some solid games. You've got the Dark Stalkers collection, you've got the Power Stone collection, you've got You've got the Mega Man X collection. You've got Street Fighter Alpha 3. You've got Garuman. You've got, I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, The Godfather. There are so many games that are more expensive, like on the PlayStation 3. Like, for instance, you've got Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which is ridiculously expensive on the PlayStation 3. It's cheaper on the PSP. You've got Wolverine Origins. That's ridiculously expensive on the PSP. Sorry, PS3. You could get it for a fraction of the price on the PSP. The Godfather, a fraction of the price on the PSP. There's so many games that you can get for the PSP and play that are cheaper. Now, funny enough, games like God of War Origins, like, so you have the God of War Origins collections, which is Ghost of Sparta, and I can't remember the other one. These God of War games are actually expensive on the PSP, surprisingly enough. But I mean, it's just really these two games are they are what they are. They're going to be expensive, but for the most part, you can really build a nice little stack of games on the PSP and not have to pay the crazy prices that you would pay on, say, a PS3. Now, I will say this, when it comes to like the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3, there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of games that were released on the PS2 that you were able to get on the PS3. And in my opinion, they're definitely better on the PS3 just because of the better graphics and things like that. And I would say that's a lot more pertinent when it comes to like more open world style games. What's an example of that? An example of that is a game like The Incredible Hulk. Now, you can get The Incredible Hulk on the PlayStation 2, but you're going to want to experience it on the PlayStation 3, to be quite honest with you. The open world feel is a lot more interactive. The buildings are just a lot more defined. It's just a lot more immersive on the PlayStation 3 just because it's a more advanced console with better graphics, better renderings, better, all of that jazz. And so you do typically see that. But if you're looking at games that, if you're not too worried about something like that, you can get a good amount of these games. Probably not The Incredible Hulk. I'm not sure if The Incredible Hulk came out on PSP. You guys can let me know that down in the comments. But for a lot of those games that kind of blended into the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 era, you can get a lot of those games on this console and have a really good time. So, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there because I know it's tax season. A lot of people think, man, they're thinking about the expensive stuff to buy. You don't have to, go expensive. You could spend 100 to 150 bucks, get yourself a clean PSP, and get at least 4 to 5 really solid titles that you can start building a nice library with, and have games that you can enjoy. The greatest part is that you're gonna get, pretty much close to PS2 graphics on this thing. Very clean graphics, a nice illuminated backlit screen, great sound. You also have the option to watch movies on this thing. And, worst case scenario, something that a lot of the followers on my channel tell me, you can always mod this thing. You can mod it. You can use it for emulation, put a bunch of games on it. My console is stock. I like to keep all my consoles stock. And if I'm gonna emulate, I'm just gonna buy a device that does emulation. Like, I'm gonna buy an emulation handheld. I don't think I'm gonna convert any of my handhelds into emulation devices. I'll just go buy them just because a lot of those handheld emulation devices are super cheap anyway. They're like 40, 50 bucks. Unless you're looking at something like an Analog Pocket or something. Now you're talking in the hundreds. But yeah, look. Don't take my word for it. There's a ton of videos out there. A lot of people out there that will talk about the PSP and how amazing it is. Look up gameplay footage. Look up some of the specs on this, but do not sleep. This is definitely a contender. Get it now while it's on the downswing. Well, actually, let me not say that. I'm not going to tell you what to get, but I will encourage you to consider the PlayStation Portable as an option. Consider it. You don't have to buy it, but it is a good option for anyone who's thinking, where can I start? But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I've been on a PSP kick the past couple days. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.